Imagine just sitting in homeroom and your teacher hands you a brand new shiny Chromebook for the school year and you actually think you're getting a massive W with a free laptop. I thought this exact same thing back in 8th grade. But in reality, you and I, well, we just willingly accepted a 24/7 digital ankle monitor. Like, honestly, school laptops were always a privacy disaster from the very second they rolled out, and everyone just kinda acted like it was totally fine because, hey, they were supposedly helping us learn. But here's what nobody tells you when they hand you that thing. Like, the second you log in, you stop being a student and you start being the product. And I'm not even talking about some vague quote unquote, oh, they read your search history thing. I'm talking about a 13-year-old girl who typed one dumb joke to her friends and got pulled out of class, interrogated, and thrown in juvenile detention overnight, all because the AI baked into her school laptop read that joke, didn't get it, and flagged her as a threat. Like, that's not a glitch. Like, that is the system working exactly how it was designed to, and it is sitting on millions of these laptops right now. So let me actually show you what is running on that quote unquote free Chromebook, because it is so much worse than you think. Like, these modern school issue machines are completely locked down by administrators, meaning that students have absolutely zero control over what is actually running in the background. Like, we're talking about forced monitoring extensions that cannot be uninstalled, extremely aggressive web filters that track every single URL you click, and also back-end systems that log your exact search history minute by minute. On top of that, schools maintain deep administrative control over webcam and microphone permissions, creating this deeply uncomfortable dynamic where the device sitting on your bedroom desk can be remotely accessed by a central server. Like, you essentially have kids trying to learn, socialize, and I don't know, explore the internet on a piece of hardware that treats them like maximum security inmates, completely normalizing the idea that giving up your absolute right to privacy is just a standard cost of getting an education. Like, it is an incredibly toxic dynamic because these devices were sold to school boards as the ultimate equalizer for learning, but nobody actually bothered to explain that the tech giants supplying the hardware were just actively using student activity logs to train their own algorithms and build massive data profiles on literal minors who cannot legally consent. But the baseline hardware tracking is honestly just child's play compared to the absolute nightmare of third-party AI monitoring software that school districts are now spending millions of dollars to install, like Gaggle and GoGuardian. Like, these companies literally market themselves as digital safety nets, promising administrators that their artificial intelligence can seamlessly scan everything a student does to prevent things like bullying, self-harm, or like violence. But what that actually translates to in the real world is a hyper-paranoid, always-on surveillance state where every Google Doc draft, save file, and school email is relentlessly scraped and analyzed by a machine learning algorithm. Like, when you log into your school account, these extensions immediately start pulling your data, reading your private chats with friends, and also scanning any photograph or files you upload to the cloud. And because the AI lacks any basic human empathy or contextual understanding, well, it basically functions as a massive automated red flag machine that just blindly snitches on teenagers for acting like teenagers. If a student is writing a creative fiction story for English class or researching a controversial historical event, well, the monitoring AI does not know the difference. It just sees trigger words and instantly alerts school officials. Like, we are actively forcing students to communicate through a digital minefield where they constantly have to self-censor their thoughts, essays, and jokes, including me. I had to do that back in my day, purely because they're terrified that a rogue algorithm is going to flag their activity log and send an administrator knocking on their door. It completely destroys the trust between educators and students, turning teachers into involuntary parole officers who are constantly forced to review these automated alerts instead of actually focusing on teaching their classes and supporting their students. And sometimes teachers actually enjoy doing this. Like, my Spanish teacher was an absolute troll, let me tell you that. And the real world consequences of this constant AI surveillance are not just theoretical privacy concerns, they are actively ruining kids' lives and leading to incredibly traumatic, unhinged escalations over complete misunderstandings. Like, the system is designed to bypass human judgment entirely in urgent situations, meaning these companies can directly contact local law enforcement to initiate welfare checks if their algorithm decides a student is a threat. You end up with these horrifying situations like down in Florida, for example, where where the state's Baker Act legally allows law enforcement to involuntarily commit individuals to a mental health facility for up to 72 hours. Because this AI acts as an unblinking monitor, it can effectively diagnose like a mental health crisis out of context and trigger police interventions for psychiatric evaluations on teenagers. Like, there's also this incredibly heartbreaking incident from Fairview Middle School in Tennessee, for example, where a 13-year-old 8th grader was just chatting with friends online and made a clearly joking comment. But the Gaggle AI completely stripped away the context of the conversation, flagged the private message as a credible threat, and his little child was reportedly arrested, like searched and thrown into juvenile detention facility like overnight. Like, she ended up sentenced to house arrest and alternative schooling, all because a piece of corporate software just failed to comprehend middle school sarcasm. Like, we're literally criminalizing adolescents by allowing these overzealous tracking algorithms to dictate real-world disciplinary actions, leaving students deeply traumatized and completely terrified of the very technology they're just required to use to get their high school diploma. It is a complete and utter failure of the system, in my opinion. The sheer volume of false positives and algorithmic overreach has gotten so out of hand, students are literally dragging their own school districts into federal court just to reclaim their basic constitutional rights. Like, for example, in Kansas, a group of high school students, specifically current and former student journalists from the Lawrence Public Schools District, launched a massive lawsuit against their administration over the use of Gaggle's AI surveillance. The district has signed a 3-year, $160,000 contract for the software, but the monitoring tool was aggressively flagging the students' investigative notes and entirely undermining their press freedoms. And when records were actually pulled during the investigation, it was revealed that the AI had flagged over 1.2k instances of student content in just 10 months, with the vast majority of them being completely benign discussions of mental health, balance, or just stuff that was just completely contextually appropriate. In one insane instance I found, for example, an art student's digital portfolio was flagged as no stuff and just deleted without any warning or consent, completely sabotaging their academic work. The software is so fundamentally flawed that it just routinely intercepts and preemptively deletes emails where students are actually trying to reach out to trusted adults like counselors for help, ironically creating a barrier to the exact mental health resources that it claims to protect. These lawsuits, they're actually exposing the massive legal liability that schools have taken on by outsourcing their student safety to third-party tech vendors, arguing that this kind of unchecked generative surveillance is just a massive violation of things like the Fourth Amendment that effectively subjects an entire generation to unreasonable, suspicionless digital searches. The entire system is just effectively broken by design. When you look at the absolute disaster that the modern school laptop has become, it is incredibly obvious that school districts are finally starting to realize that they just spent millions of taxpayer dollars to create entirely new, unmanageable problems. Administrators, well, they thought they were buying a streamlined educational experience, but instead they purchased a massive legal and ethical liability that requires constant moderation. Now, on top of the invasive background tracking, well, schools are doubling down by forcing students to use incredibly restrictive lockdown browsers for testing and deploying highly controversial AI chain detectors that falsely accuse innocent kids of plagiarism on a daily basis. That the entire educational tech industry has just shifted from providing helpful learning tools to just selling dystopian compliance and surveillance products that treat every single student as a potential threat or a data point to get monetized. It is completely inexcusable that kids are being forced to navigate their years on devices they do not own, cannot control, and cannot trust. If there's one massive takeaway from this entire mess, it is that you absolutely have to treat any school-issued hardware like a hostile spying tool. That's what I did with my school Chromebook. Never log into your personal email, never save your passwords, and the little second you are done with your homework, well, you shut that laptop down and keep it out of your personal life, or honestly just be like me and never use it at home. The era of the helpful school computer is kinda dead, and what we have left is a privacy disaster that we are forcing the next generation to deal with. So let me know in the comments if you had to use one like me. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. And if you watch this to the end, we'll have a message for you. The OG world, like in older videos, it's going to be coming back. Anyways, see ya.